.com, which has long been synonymous with the internet itself, is the king of domain names, and it's also the leader in domain name disputes. For the past 2 years, I've been publishing a quarterly report with data and trends about the UDRP, the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy. But in this video, I'm going to take a deeper dive into one of the more interesting issues. Which top-level domains are the most popular in UDRP cases? For this analysis, I'm looking at data across all 4 issues of GigaLaw's Domain Dispute Digest for 2021, which includes almost all of the decisions from the leading UDRP service providers. And what I found is both interesting and perhaps a little surprising. First, the obvious takeaway, which is what I said at the outset. .com domain names account for the overwhelming majority of UDRP cases. And here are the actual numbers, being published for the first time anywhere, I might add, for 2021. Out of 11,799 domain names in UDRP decisions, 8,543 of them, or more than 72% of the total, were .coms. That shouldn't be surprising, especially when you consider that .com is also the most popular top-level domain, or TLD, for registrations in general. According to the most recent domain name industry brief from VeriSign, for the third quarter of 2021, there were a total of 364.6 million domain name registrations across all TLDs, and 158.6 million of those were in the .com space. So at just over 43%, that doesn't correspond directly to the number of disputes that result from these names, but keep in mind that this is not really an apples-to-apples comparison, since the UDRP doesn't even apply to all of the TLDs. In any event, it starts to get a little more interesting when you look beyond .com. And here's a list I compiled of the top 10 gTLDs and UDRP decisions in 2021. In order after .com, they are .shop, .org, .net, .xyz, .bar, .store, .info, .online, and .club. But after .com, no one TLD really accounts for relatively many domain name disputes, with the number 2 TLD, .shop, appearing in only 4.9% of all disputed domain names. So it's hard to know exactly why any one of these TLDs shows up on this list, but I've got some thoughts about a few of them. Many of the new gTLDs on the list, those that were approved by ICANN in recent years as part of its expansion of the domain name system, such as .shop, .xyz, .store, .online, and .club, are all not only in the top 10 list of disputed domain names, but they're also on the top 10 list of new gTLD registrations in general, which seems to indicate that the more popular a TLD is overall, the more likely it is to be the subject of a UDRP complaint by a trademark owner. And that seems to make sense. I'm sure this analogy is far from perfect, but it's sort of like saying that a lot of Hondas are involved in traffic accidents. It's not because there's anything wrong with them, but simply because there are a lot of them. In other words, the more domain names there are in a particular TLD, perhaps the more likely those domain names are to appear in UDRP decisions. Of course, there are some exceptions, such as for the restricted gTLDs like .law, which I use on my own GigaLaw website. Registration of .law domain names is limited to qualified lawyers and authorized legal institutions, so it's not really practical for a cyber squatter to register a .law domain name. And as a result, there were literally no .law UDRP disputes the entire year. The same is true for some other restricted TLDs such as .bank, as well as branded TLDs such as .bmw and .lego, just to name a few. So looking back at the top 10 list of disputed new gTLDs, the only one on the list that's not among the top 10 among new gTLD registrations is .bar, which ranks number 14 on that list. Plus, interestingly, 154 of the 155 .bar domain names in UDRP cases last year came in a single case filed by WhatsApp. The UDRP decision in that case doesn't provide any insight into why one cyber squatter registered so many .bar domain names targeting a single trademark owner, and none of the domain names in that case were associated with active web pages, so it's hard to know what was really going on there. and this one case probably skewed the results, which means we might not see .bar show up in many UDRP cases in the future unless something changes. The remaining TLDs on this top 10 list are all so-called legacy TLDs, .org, .net, and .info, which have a long history of appearing in UDRP disputes, so that's not terribly surprising right there. In any case, this top 10 list of most disputed TLDs accounts for more than 91% of all domain names in UDRP cases, and the numbers drop off pretty quickly after this list, with 204 other TLDs accounting for the remaining 996 disputed domain names. In fact, almost 100 top-level domains appeared in only one UDRP decision. Everything from .football to .monster to .love to .apartments. So all told, domain names with 214 TLDs showed up in UDRP decisions during the year. While most of these TLDs were short, such as .cam and .icu, to my surprise, there were some that consisted of 10 or more characters, such as .restaurant and .investments, as well as the longest one at 13 characters, .international. As a result, it's difficult to find many patterns, though I do think two things are clear. First, either cyber squatters are primarily targeting trademark owners by registering .com domain names, or trademark owners are primarily interested in enforcing their rights in the .com space. And second, although few TLDs outside of .com have generated many UDRP complaints, trademark owners do need to consider these other top-level domains when deciding which UDRP complaints are worth filing. If you want to learn more about the UDRP, please check out my masterclass on domain name disputes, as well as other resources on my GigaLaw website. And be sure to subscribe to the GigaLaw YouTube channel to be notified of future videos discussing other internet legal issues. Thanks for watching, and see you next time online.